I would like to believe a year into this that most Americans understand that there is no quick fix, that it's not going to be over in just a matter of days or months, and that there's no one magical thing that will just like wake us up from this nightmare. And this comment I thought was fantastic. Alternate parallel infrastructure takes a minute to build. I was commenting in this video about how it takes time for us to build relationships. We have to build the muscles that we need to flex. And most Americans have never had to resist fascism before. Most Americans have never done this work before. So we have to build skills, we have to build connections, we have to reconstitute community after especially COVID 2020, 2021, like just destroyed community in this country. And that takes time. People wanted all of this to stop. We have engaged in so much magical, fantastical thinking. Blue Anon spreading rumors that Kamala Harris was actually going to be sworn in as president, that like between Donald Trump getting elected and January 20th of last year, that there was going to be some magical intervention and we were going to end up with Kamala as president. And then they've continued with those conspiracy theories that she actually won, and the like, any day now, 2 weeks just over the horizon, any day now, Donald Trump is going to get removed from office. Likewise, people who've been saying for a year, like, oh, let's push for impeaching Trump, when that's never going to happen as long as Republicans are in power. That's not a good use of our energy. That's not going to happen. Too many people either wanting magical solutions or just wanting this all to go away really quickly and then being pissed that it doesn't. People are angry that we're still stuck in this mess a year in, not understanding that it takes time to build alternate parallel infrastructure. MAGA, Project 2025, the Republicans, y'all have spent decades digging us into this hole. And we've been pretty, corporate establishment Democrats especially, pretty blind, pretty willing to not look over here and see what was happening. People thought that all of that groundwork that they carefully laid, all of that infrastructure, all of that scaffolding that they built wasn't really there. Or like we just elected Joe Biden, then it would magically just like combust and everything would go back to normal. That's a fantasy. The same way that MAGA is a reactionary movement that wants to take us back to a previous time, a romanticized iteration of a previous version of America. Like we can't go back either. We can't just undo all of this and go back to what we had before, because what we had before was not working, because that entire before period was a span of time in which MAGA, Project 2025, was building out all of the structure to implement this awful plan that we are living through right now. And in response, y'all, Democrats sure as fuck have not been doing it, but as a society at large, we have not been, while MAGA has been building, while Project 2025 has been scrambling not scrambling, patiently laying all of that foundation. What have we been doing? Just trying to survive in late stage capitalism. So now we have to spend the same amount of time, except really we got to pick up the pace. We have to do it even faster. We have to come together. We have to do the fundraising. We have to build the community connections. We have to build the skills. So many of us, y'all, have learned so much over the last year. We've not only had to dispel our fantasies, right? We've had to set aside our preconceived notions and learn what resistance movements actually do and how they've been successful. We have had such an incredibly steep learning curve. And also, we are building that grassroots movement. So it's in our own heads, right? Our own knowledge base, our own skill set, and likewise organizing on an interpersonal level with other people, building those support networks, building that people power that we need. And it takes time. I know that we live in a society of instant gratification. We want all of this to be over yesterday, right? Many of us felt like we woke up after the 2024 elections, or if you were like me, up all night looking at the elections results and just feeling that sinking, feeling, right, your stomach just twisting in knots and just like that cold water being thrown over you as you realized what was happening and you just wanted it to go away. We aren't very good at being patient. We aren't very good in this country at understanding how to play the long game, which is weird because MAG has been really good. The Heritage Foundation has been really fucking good. Y'all, they've been working at this since the 1980s. And so it's going to take us time. And I know that we're up against the clock. We're up against the midterms in many ways. I also am a little bit frustrated and concerned that too many Democrats, too many of my friends, y'all, I hope you're watching this if we're friends in real life. Too many of my friends in real life think if I vote blue in the midterms, like, oh, that's my big act. That's my big thing that I have to do. That is really important. We need everybody to vote because Republicans are trying to disenfranchise millions and millions of voters so that they can maintain their grasp on power. Because if people are allowed to exercise their right to vote, then Republicans are going to lose, right? So they have to suppress people's rights. But I have too many friends that like, oh, their husband is a Republican and they live in a red state. And they're like, my one big act that I can pull off is voting Democratic in the midterms. That's awesome. That you definitely need to do that. That's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough. That's just one part of the solution. That's one part of the plan to get out of this. We have to care for each other right now. We have to defend. Timothy Snyder talks in his book on tyranny about how one of the key components of surviving periods of time like this is that we do not abandon the most vulnerable. We must defend the most vulnerable, those who are targeted by the regime. So what folks are doing in Minnesota, what they're doing here in Portland, rapid response ICE watch groups like the one that I'm a part of, that's really, really important work. That's how we keep the most vulnerable safe. We document so we get justice for them if we are not able to stop what's being done to them in the moment. Likewise, we're building those community connections because it is mutual aid. It is care for each other. The regime wants us isolated and therefore powerless. When we care for each other, when we invest in each other, when we lean into our humanity, that's how we build power, right? They don't want us to come together because when we do, we have all of the power. But it takes time. It takes time to do all of that. And I don't know how to make us pick up the pace. I would love to see big labor strikes. I would love to see huge concerted economic resistance efforts. Where are the massive, massive boycotts like we saw in the women's suffrage movement? Like where is the economic pressure being applied on huge, huge scales? And I don't mean like, yes, the Target boycott is a great example, but I mean like we got to dig deep and I'm not seeing that yet. So while we are building all of this out, I think shifting expectations of people, having people understand what is required in order to stop this, I think is still ongoing work, right? Knitting Cult Lady talked earlier about the protests in Iran, and she brought up such a good point, which is that women are beaten to death for not covering their hair. And what an act of defiance. Like women are marching in the streets in Iran with no head covering on, understanding that they will likely get beaten for that. They may lose their lives. There is no way to secure our democracy without significant personal and financial risk. And I've been saying that for a year, but maybe people are starting to realize that now. The government will be violent. They are being violent in order to try to suppress our rights, to take away our freedoms. And unfortunately, as much as we must commit to nonviolent discipline, the government will be violent toward us. And there's really no way to get out of this without us accepting that we are undertaking risk on many, many levels, right? A lot of us have gotten a lot of death threats for a long time and are well aware. A lot of us have engaged in pretty significant risk-taking when it comes with our finances, when it comes to our own personal safety, our bodies as well. A number of my friends have been arrested over the last year. Some of them have been beaten and harmed, shot at very close range with less lethals just for standing outside the ICE building in Portland or in Chicago. Yeah, I think it is still this process of building out the infrastructure, building our muscles so we can flex them. Also, setting those expectations, right? I think that helps people hit, if we're going to continue with the muscle analogy, it helps people hit the gym. If you tell them like, hey, we need you to be able to do this kind of lift, you have to on your own accept that you will do this kind of lift. People have to have the discipline and the mindset and be willing to gain that knowledge, be willing to undertake those risks, be willing to build those connections. And that's all still an ongoing process. So if you have thoughts or advice on how to pick up the pace, I would love to know. I also am frustrated. I also am impatient, but I don't know that there's a way to speed things up any more than what we're already doing. If you have thoughts or ideas, hit me with it. I would love to know.